Welcome back to Taylor's of Movie Reviews, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're reviewing Wreck-It Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, which is a bit of a mixed bag, but overall, I think they did a pretty decent job with it. Let's begin. So, I gotta admit, I was not the biggest fan of the first Wreck-It Ralph. I didn't hate it, it was a fine film, I just thought it was incredibly average. Felt like an easy way for a big studio to be like, how can we stuff as many memorable, known characters, known entities out there in mass media into one movie? And Wreck-It Ralph 2 was definitely an expansion of that to the nth degree, saying how much Disney stuff can we literally put into one single movie? Stuffing Marvel, stuffing Star Wars, stuffing Disney princess lore, getting back the original voice actresses of all of the Disney princesses that are still alive. In fact, I believe every Disney princess in this movie that was still alive, they got the original voice actress for. The only people that got recasted were, of course, the people that are no longer around. And by far, Wreck-It Ralph 2 was the most meta Disney film I've ever seen. It gets a little bit complicated and you definitely shouldn't think too hard about it. So, the plot of the film is fairly simple. You've got two friends and they're living out their lives in the arcade, but things are getting a little bit boring and they want things to get mixed up a little bit or just a little more diversity in their everyday lives. And then, of course, the Wi-Fi gets plugged in, and in order to save a part for a certain arcade game that needs a replacement part, they decide to go on the internet to look for it on eBay. And man, do they say eBay a lot in this movie. I gotta imagine there's a lot of money transactions going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing. But yeah, anyway, they get to the internet and it's basically product placement galore. Every internet thing you can think of, there's probably a tiny version of it in the background. They got Google, they got Amazon, they got YouTube, Pinterest even, and I think the whole movie they were just hoping that general audiences would be like, look, that's Amazon, that's Pinterest, that's Twitter, I know what that is, I know what Twitter is, look at that, I know that thing, I understand that. Basically, references galore, and knowing that going into this movie, based on some of the trailers I had seen, I figured that that could be a big distraction to this film. They knew the internet would go nuts showing off all these Disney princesses in casual clothing, and they were right. You know, Disney understands what'll go viral. But luckily, they didn't go that far from the Disney princess train that you already saw in the trailers. All the scenes with all of those princesses you saw in the commercials and the ads, there really isn't that much more of them in the actual movie. They are definitely just a cameo. It's not like they're major characters of the film, which is bizarre because sometimes you get people hyped up with things they know, so you can go, that's Pocahontas, that's Little Mermaid, that's Tangled, that's Frozen, I know this, I know these references, and then you get into the movie and it just plays you exactly what you've already seen, and then they move on with the plot. But I'm actually glad they did that because this movie could have very easily been weird if they just decided, you know what, we're just gonna have our own Disney version of Avengers, which is funny because we own Avengers, but we're gonna take all of Disney animation, make them 3D, even the 2D movies we're gonna make 3D, get the original voice actresses back, get them all in a room together so they can have a couple scenes and then move on. Even the late Stan Lee made a cameo in this, and as an animated form. There were YouTubers in this film. So again, one of the most meta pictures I've seen in a long time, but all of that doesn't really matter if you have a really crap story, which luckily Disney Animation I think pulled out something that was a tad more interesting. So I'm not going to spoil the film for you, but the general premise and the general message of the film by the end of it is that you and your best friend, as close as you may be, you may have different ideas of what the future has in store for you. And just because your best friend wants a different future that doesn't necessarily involve the same future that you want, that doesn't really mean that they're a bad person. Which is a really deep message, especially to be teaching to this movie's demographic, which typically goes pretty young, knowing that a lot of the comedy in this is slapstick, you know, Ralph goes viral, and in order to make enough money to buy the part to save the arcade game, they have to make Ralph into a popular meme, and somehow when Ralph gets likes, the meme gets money. I'm not exactly sure how this plot makes sense. Obviously, it's aimed at a much younger demographic, but the idea that in the span of 8 hours you can make a meme go viral and somehow make the equivalent to $30,000. Where is this money coming from? People are hitting like. They're not donating to you. This isn't Patreon. But people online see Ralph doing silly things and they hit the like button a bunch of times, and somehow Ralph, the cartoon character on a website, accumulates $30,000? Yeah, I don't get it either. And also my other question is, like, all of the Disney princesses, while it was cool to see them all together, together again, they're acting like they came straight out of their last film they were in. Are we fourth wall breaking here? Do all the Disney princesses know that they are fake? Do they know that they are characters in movies and are just playing them on for a film? In other words, Moana, Elsa, Ariel, all of these princesses, do they understand that all of this is fake if we're treating Disney like it's its own website and they're just there? Do they know how they got there? If all of the other Disney princess movies are real and canon to the Disney universe, then how did they end up here? Why is no one questioning that? I don't know. Don't think too hard about it, because you can definitely get confused and a little bit disturbed about, like, wait, doesn't this kind of destroy a lot of earlier Disney films now? Because we can now see all of the voice actresses saying in their character that they are not real and that they are just entities of a giant corporation. But anyway, I'm getting too sidetracked from the fact that the message of the film of having good friends that have different dreams is a powerful one, and one I found fairly unique, and it makes me realize that Disney Animation has some pretty capable writers that know how to put a fairly interesting storyline into their main plot. Now, it's not my favorite thing I've seen from Disney Animation, though some of my favorite animated films are from this studio. Films like Zootopia, which I was completely blown away with, where their morals talk about stereotyping and grouping and generalizing people in a kid's film, and they were able to teach that somehow and make it fun and entertaining and yet really, really important to today's society. This does a similar thing, but I also feel like, similar to their fad of the internet, they were kind of going for a bit of clickbait, hoping that with the opportunity of going on the internet, they would be able to put anything you can imagine from a Disney film into one trailer so that everyone would go watch it and be like, I want to watch it for that scene or for that scene, even though it's probably not a big part of the movie. They just want to get people in the seats. And I also think the characters of the film are not overly complicated. You know, Ralph is a big, clunky guy who's kind of stupid sometimes, he's kind of silly, but he's got a heart of gold and he has a lot of love for his best friend. And she is really cute, but she likes being really dangerous and loves playing like violent racing games that are meant to mimic like GTA, but they're still best friends, but they want different things, so they have to call each other from across the internet. And at the end of the day, I thought that the plot was fine. It was just a little bit basic and definitely felt like they were going for that intentional clickbait, like, we know how to get people into the theater. Come on, come on, come on. But at this point, I don't blame them, because it can be very difficult to entice people to come back and be like, no, we have something interesting for you. Now, there were definitely a lot of scenes in this movie that felt like adults trying to know what kids act like. You know, the post-credits scene of this film is a Rickroll, which I haven't been Rickrolled in years. I literally remember being Rickrolled when I was in elementary school. Never thought I would be Rickrolled in a movie theater before, but this is what the adults know of. In fact, before the movie started, there was this really awkward, like, group FaceTime call between the directors and the producer that are basically like, hi, I'm the director and I'm the producer. We want you to enjoy this film. And they added like fake buffering, even though it's like loading at 4K and this is clearly not on smartphone. I just thought there's a lot of awkward, cringy scenes of definitely adults thinking they're understanding what the youth is like. So if you're into like deep meme culture and you're watching this, so you're probably on the internet a lot, there's probably a lot of this movie you're going to be confused by, but you need to suspend your disbelief for most Disney animation anyway. So overall, decent film. If I had to give it a letter grade, I'd probably give it like a solid A-, you know, pretty good. Nothing too extravagant, but it was fun to see all of these characters on screen at the same time. You had an all-star cast of people all put together. And overall, I think if after Thanksgiving goes by, you want to take your family, you want to take your younger siblings to a good animated film, this one will probably keep you guys entertained for the duration of the film. I was entertained as a 20-year-old man watching this with my 21-year-old wife and my 21-year-old friend Wyatt, and we had an enjoyable experience. So feel free to check it out. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have an excellent day. Take care.